Welcome to the Scar Release Podcast. Join Cody Byrns as he talks with many thought leaders who have encountered trauma and other life difficulties, and yet they haven't allowed it to stop them from giving hope to others. Through this podcast, our wish is to embolden every listener. No matter your story, you can live a life of freedom and fulfill your purpose. Here is your host, Cody Byrns.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Scar Release. I am looking forward to having the honor to interview one of my buddies here that I got to meet. It's been a handful of years ago now, and we met in Phoenix, Arizona, and I want to read his bio to introduce him. His name is Kirk Nurmi. Kirk rose to international prominence as the lead counsel for the infamous Jodi Arias. The stress of that case brought cancer into his life, and with cancer came big challenges, a whole new life, a life wherein happiness is his beacon. With his beacon on view, Kirk has written for the New York Daily News, authored 5 books, and spoken and/or performed his one-man show, Infamy Cancer Life, all across the country. Kirk has also appeared on The Nancy Grace Show, Dr. Oz, and has been featured in documentaries on the Discovery ID and the Oxygen Network. In a step aside of his comfort zone, Kirk released his first work of legal fiction, Sex Club Killer, in December of 2019, and intends to debut his one-man show, Overcoming Jodi Arias, in 2020. Yet his most important work is his personal assistant to his wife of 26 years and his 4-pound Chihuahua. Kirk, how are you, sir?
Cody, I'm doing great. Great to be here with you.
Oh, man, I am so excited to have you. And, man, so you're based out of Mesa, Arizona. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
And like I said, we had met in probably, I'd say it's
3 years ago, probably now.
Yeah. And we had met through Sean.
Yeah.
And, yeah, man, you're just an incredible speaker, and you're really doing a lot. And there's so much we can dive in here. But first, if you wouldn't mind, just give us some of your background and who you are. And yeah, just so people that may know you or may not know you, will have a better understanding.
Sure. I graduated law school in 2000 from the University of Wyoming, and I moved to Arizona right after graduation. Things were booming. My wife and I got jobs here right away. And I spent about 10 years or so working as a public defender. In 2009, I was assigned, while a public defender, the Jodi Arias case. And that kind of became what I'm most associated with in a lot of people's mind, because it became a worldwide sensation. It was one of the first trials, I think, to be streamed over the internet. It was a worldwide phenomenon, and people got to know me that way. Saw me on TV and that case, the first part of it lasted about 6 months, and then there was a retrial on her sentencing. It was a death penalty case. And so people got to know me that way, and still, followed me for about 2.5 years. And like I say, then that led a lot of stressful situations in my life, a lot of what I call public shaming, which is something I heard Monica Lewinsky talk about in a recent interview with John Oliver. It really spoke to me. And so that led to cancer coming in my life. There was a lot of stress, and it was a stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis that really made me think about if I wanted to practice law again, and got me on this whole course of conduct that led me to, 10K speeches and Sean, where we met. So that's kind of how most people know me, in a little bit of my background, hopefully without filibustering too much.
So, but I mean, it's really a lot. And in this, for many people, they may or may not know a lot. Some of them may remember this case because it was so famous. But this, being practicing in law, being an attorney, you were, it was a criminal defense attorney, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so you were placed in a position out of force, I guess, forced to represent this individual who had committed such a severe crime. Am I correct on that?
Well, yeah, we're assigned those cases as public defenders. I was in a special unit of the Capital Unit of the Public Defender's Office, which only handles death penalty cases. And after about a year or so of having the Arias case, I was hoping to leave the public defender's office and revamp my practice, start doing cases that weren't so intense, weren't so stressful, that sort of thing. And my client argued against my leaving the public defender's office and or leaving her case. And the judge in August of 2011 ordered that I kept the case as I went into private practice. So in February 2011, the case was mine as a sole practitioner with a team around me.
Mm. And I could only imagine the difficulty of that and the stress load, because so many individuals despised this person and
Yeah.
what they committed. And yeah, I mean, that would be a lot of public shaming and people,
And a lot of people wrongly assume when they see a lawyer there, right? They don't think about the facts. They don't separate the lawyer from the client. They don't think about how I was ordered to be there, like we just talked about, right? They make up their own stories about how I'm trying to get famous or I'm trying to get rich or how I believe her accusations, right? And so that all fed into that public shaming and that stress, because I was someone that they could reach out to where they didn't have such access to her.
Mm. And I mean, that would be so challenging. And then just I mean, in your everyday life, I could see where the struggle of cancer would come on from that stress load. And I mean, so you say that case went on for a good 2 years or something?
Well, I was actually assigned the case 2009 and she was sentenced in 2015. But the actual trial itself, in terms of maybe the public portion, when the cameras were turning on and it was being streamed worldwide, that started on January 2nd, 2013. And she was sentenced in April of 2015. So the public portion of it, I guess I'll call it, was about 2.5 years.
Okay. And so I'd imagine that scarred you emotionally in so many different ways. And
you bet.
Oh my gosh. Tell us about that. I mean, how in the world did you pick yourself? Okay, so you go through all that stress load, and then now you have this struggle of, okay, being diagnosed with cancer. All these different stresses of life, your entire life as you know it is quickly, it's changing. How did you deal with that?
Well, in April 2015, after she was sentenced, that part of the stress and the trauma of it all made me really think about whether or not I wanted to practice law or not. And I just needed some time off. I attributed it to burnout, law school, and everything else. I didn't really want to give up my legal career. But when cancer came into my life, I knew immediately that it was from the stress of serving as her counsel and everything I put through. And I'll tell you, Cody, when I got that diagnosis and I realized that it was stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it meant 6 rounds of chemotherapy that was going to span about 5 months, and they were going to have to install a port. And with Google these days, you can learn about all the horrors of chemotherapy and everything else. And so, I really went to a dark place, and I wondered if I was going to submit to the chemo, because I just didn't know whether I wanted to rebuild my life or not. It was just a real struggle for me, a real moment. And I knew what that meant. That meant an ugly death at the hands of cancer. But, I was in my late 40s, and it's like, did I want to rebuild my life? And I'd done so much, and so much it seemed like it was gone. And I really just got to the point where I said, I just felt in my heart that there was another mission for me. I didn't know what that mission was. It was kind of the feeling I had in my younger years, when I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer, and kind of got off track and made my way back on track. I felt just in my heart, there wasn't any logic to it or anything else, that there was another purpose. There was a meaning why all this was happening. And So then and there I said, okay, I'm going to go in the chair. But one of the promises I made to the chemo chair, one of the promises I was going to make to myself was that I wasn't going to live my life the same way, my remaining years, however many that might be, in the same way I had my prior years. And that was a promise I wavered on a little bit because I went back to my law practice, took a couple of minor cases, but I realized when I was back there, I just didn't feel inspired by it. So, and by that time I had written a book, because the other thing I wanted to make sure is I wanted to impose truth upon the lies that my client had told. She told everybody on interviews and was interviewed on the national news about, basically about how I created this defense that her victim was an abusive pedophile. A complete lie. But if I was going to leave the planet, I wanted to impose truth upon that lie. So that's when I wrote Trapped with Miss Arias, part 1. And then, like I say, that became a mission, and getting that truth out there became a mission. And when the bars got upset and I think I did nothing wrong, I said, you know what? I made that promise to myself to walk away, that I was going to live my life a different way. And I didn't want that safety net. I didn't want to spend a bunch of time and energy also trying to save something that I didn't want. That would have been a real egoic kind of response to it. When I felt a calling to do something else, it just didn't feel right to fight for something like that, to have that safety net or anything else for whatever reason. So in November of 2016, and my lawyers thought I was crazy, I said, you know what? I want to ask for disbarment. I want out. I want my freedom. I don't want to be a member of the state bar anymore. And that was granted in November of 2016. And that was a day that I really took with pride. I felt like I had taken my life back in a non-egoic fashion, and it was ready for whatever fate had in store for me moving forward.
Wow, man, I applaud that so much, and I mean that brings on such a respect for you as an individual, and I love that you knew that there was something greater on the other side. In spite of all that you encountered, you still knew that there was something worth fighting for. And I truly believe that there's a lot of people, and they very well could be listening to this, that are in that same situation. And they may be wondering if it's, is life worth fighting for? And maybe it's not dealing with cancer or dealing with the legal stuff, but it could be, who knows? I mean, the list could go on. It's endless. But I think everyone should be encouraged to know that there is a better tomorrow, and life is worth fighting for. And in our dark moments, I think what you did was, you kind of knew that you had to take some time off, refocus on what was most important. And I encourage everyone to do just that. And so you are now living that lifestyle of inspiring others, encouraging others. And that's really, that's what I draw to. I love that. And since this time, your bio, you've written 5 different books.
Well, I guess it's 6 now with the release of the latest. Yes, but yes, that is true.
And so your latest book is it's a fiction book, your first fiction book.
Yes.
And it's The Sex Club Killer.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us a brief teaser as to what that is about?
Well, it is about a sex therapist who takes the matters into her own hands. And it's kind of has a bit of, I don't know, you're probably too young, Cody, to remember Mickey Spillane and some of those old noir novels, but that kind of hardcore kind of work, that's kind of raw and energetic. And back in the day, it was guys in raincoats calling from phone booths. So I kind of updated that a little bit and made it much less sexist with a female lead. So it's a good read for adults, as the title should indicate. Don't read this. Don't read this to your kids. So
it's not a good nighttime story, but
no, it's not a good nighttime story.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I just got the visual. hello, kids. We're going to read Sex Club Killer this evening
Yes.
as I'm trying to
Yeah.
get you to go to sleep. Oh
Yeah.
dear, have mercy. Well, that's a pretty interesting. I mean, that's hey, why not? I think it's cool. And so it's your first fiction book, and you've made multiple television appearances, and which I think is really cool. Now, you are doing a one man comedy show, and you're debuting that uh, next year.
Yeah. In
Yeah, tell us
Florida,
about
actually,
that.
I'm scheduled to do that in my new show called Overcoming Jodi Arias. It's really kind of about the public shaming. It has elements of comedy. Now, I don't want people to think they're going to be laughing from beginning to end, but it's kind of the story of what I overcame to become a lawyer and some of the things I had to overcome with the shaming, because I think we all, whether however we term it, we're all looking to overcome something, whether it's releasing our scars or overcoming different things. And so while there's elements of humor, because I always think it's good to laughter is a good medicine and a great way to learn. I think, we can learn a lot from what we laugh at when we're open to it. But it's also meant to get you to look at your life a little differently and think, what do I have to overcome in my life, right? What do I need? How do I do this? Because I always think, it sounds self-aggrandizing, but if I overcame the public shaming I did from the Jodi Arias ordeal and the cancer that followed, I think a lot of people can overcome a lot of the things in their lives too. And one of those things, why I bring comedy into it, aside from the things I mentioned before, is having fun in your life is part of that, is part of that recovery, is part of that overcoming. Because no matter what you're going to do in your life, no matter what struggles you have now, and we were talking about struggles earlier, they are just temporary. And if we move, and I made happiness my beacon when I let go of the law career. And that's kind of what I encourage people to do in the show. So I don't want to come and lecture them for 90 minutes. Right now I can't juggle like you, but I can tell a few jokes and make hopefully make people look at their life a different way and have fun while they're doing it.
I love that. I mean, and you're really helping people in more ways than just one. And I do believe laughter. I mean, there is scientific proof behind that. It is so important. And I know in my situation after the wreck and all those things, and you have to look at the funny side of those things. Like Sean always used to talk about in his speech, what's funny
Yeah.
about this? But I really do believe it helps in so many different ways. So I think that's awesome. So it's you're having fun. You're welcoming the laughs, but you're also teaching something through that. And I think even as myself as a speaker, that's something that I strive to do while I'm on stage, and I love that. So you're debuting it in Tallahassee, and where was you debuting it at again?
Well, that is a Unity Church in Tallahassee. It's North Point. And I'll have that information up soon on my website, which is unchainedlives.com, where I post all my show dates and my books, my self-help books, that kind of thing. So, because that site's really about the books that I write that are designed to help people.
Okay, great. Now, you your location is a church. We talked about a little bit about this when we was off the record button, but you also do a lot of comedy clubs now. You find yourself doing those
Yeah, I've
things.
done. I debuted my show in a comedy club here in Scottsdale, and then in April, I'm be ready to announce soon. The couple weeks it'll be up on my website. The location of a show in Glendale, Arizona. So that should be fun. And it's the same show. It's altered a little bit, like we were talking before we start. There may be a little bit of language that I use at the comedy club that I wouldn't use at the church, and it's obviously a little different. But I try to make sure that the same information comes across, so people leave with a lighthearted feeling that I hope continues that's during that 90 minutes and continues forward in their life. Because that's the biggest thing as I see it, Cody. So many times we just don't have fun in our lives. We don't value happiness, right? And especially in North American culture, and maybe even a little more so with men, it's how much money you make, how much status do you have, and I remember coaching a lawyer, and he's crying because he became a lawyer because his mom thought he was a piece of something I won't say on this program because this is a family show. But you know what I'm saying? And because of that ego, right? And that ego set up with it. And I thought, boy, we just don't place value on happiness. And we fear making those changes that might lead to more happiness because we're going to lose some of those things, right? We're going to lose the status. I can't call myself a lawyer anymore. Personally, I enjoy that, but some people wouldn't, right? Or if they're a doctor or whatever, if they're a doctor and they're miserable, you know what I'm talking about. You come across these people. We know a lot of these people. And you shift towards making happiness a priority, and it just sounds so airy fairy to some people, or like, whatever, you're gonna be a life coach now, whatever, right? But I'm happy and I'm enjoying, and yeah, the income's not there, but I get to enjoy life in a different way. I notice a lot of the small things. I smile more. I laugh more. Um, I only comb my hair when I'm doing, important shows like Scar Release. But so, when I'm in here, right, X Club Killer, who knows what I'm wearing? It could be, Cheeto stained T-shirt, and a ball hat. But yeah, that ought to boost sales right there. What an image! But that's I'm having fun in that life, and I'm not having to go to court and stress out and do all those things that were a great part of me then, but weren't a part of me now. And that's another thing I think with happiness. And when I do a little bit of life coaching, it's about those changes, right? Something can serve us at a certain point in time that doesn't serve us 10 or 15 years down the road. It's like, how many people make their career choices based on the major they picked in college when they were 18 or 19 years old? That could have been based on the fact that they had a crush on so-and-so, and so-and-so was going to be a business marketing major. And so they became a business marketing major. And now 20 years later, they don't like business marketing. They want to do something else. And they're scared to make that change. And, it's like, I heard somebody, I wish I could tell you who, but they said, would you take career advice? Would you now, as an adult, take career advice from an 18-year-old? And the answer is probably no. I mean, unless the 18-year-old is, I don't know, invented some $1 million app or something, you're probably not going to take that advice. So what you're doing by keeping the career that you're miserable in at 45, because you chose it when you were 18 or 19, is the equivalent of taking career advice from the 18 or 19-year-old. The only difference is it's just a version of you.
Wow. Man, you put that in a whole new light that I had never even realized before. And I believe there are a lot of unhappy people in today's society. They're living unhappy lives. And when they're unhappy, they will find the other people around them unhappy, whether it be their spouse, their children, their coworkers. And I think people do need to take a step back and realize, you know what, life is short, and enjoy your life. Don't be miserable through it. If you have to turn down some extra cash flow, what is truly worth more in that case? And I think, self-care and loving yourself and being happy and enjoying life, I think that's really what's most important. And so I love that. I respect, I believe that. And I think it's true that what you were saying is some people in college, they will, which is interesting, but I believe it. They may do it out of, I'm going to do this because so-and-so's doing this, and, maybe it be a girl liking them or whatever it may be. But it's interesting. Sometimes we just do things because other people is doing them, or we feel like we have to do them. We're, being forced to do. But people need to take a step back and find what really makes you happy. What do you really enjoy? So I love that, man.
Thank you. That can be a hard thing, because I think as children, we're not taught that, right? We're taught to succeed and work hard and I've even noticed here lately, I've been telling my wife, like, I feel like I'm having fun and I'm being more productive, but it somehow feels wrong because it's supposed to be miserable. Like work is
Mm.
supposed to be miserable, and we have that association, like, oh, you're supposed to go and hit the grindstone, put your nose to the grindstone, 9 to 5 kind of thing. And it's amazing. And it still unfolds every day, even like I say, with my clothes and what I'm doing and everything else, that I'm writing these books and doing these things and talking about TV projects with people. And I'm not miserable. I'm not dressed up. I'm not, all these other things. And it's so foreign because it was so against the way I was raised and probably the way a lot of people were raised, right? Work, to some people, it's associated with misery, something you have to do in order to pay the bill. But, I think unhappiness is probably the biggest epidemic we have in this country. I know
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Obama says obesity, but I think I'm going to have to disagree with her. I think it's unhappiness, because the unhappiness is the root of so much. It's the root of so many substance abuse problems. It's the root of so many other addictions, right? Because we're just unhappy and we're looking to fill that void. Well, if we start loving ourselves and filling that void, there isn't the need for some of those external validators or tranquilizers, spiritual tranquilizers, whatever you want to call them, something to make you feel happy for a few minutes, whether that's Netflix, whether that's the football game, no matter what it is, right? You can still enjoy those things, but if they're your reason for being happy, then when those go away, so too does your happiness.
Mm. And happiness, I think, also is a choice as well, and just choosing to enjoy your day. But I do agree with you whenever you say that. Um, if you find your happiness in those things, you maybe need to take a step back, because maybe you're truly not. It's temporary satisfaction, and those things can never have good, lasting results. And I know even in my case with, for example, trying to lose weight, Lord knows I have my sweet tooth, and especially with, Christmas around the corner and different things, mom making cookies and so forth. It's temporary satisfaction. It's good. You
Yes.
can have one, have two, but it's when you start going above those numbers, you start running into trouble. And so I have to think to myself, it's temporary satisfaction. It's only a few seconds, or a minute of enjoyment. For me, it's a few seconds, uh, but it doesn't lead to the lasting results. This is not going to make me a better person of who I want to be tomorrow. This is not going to make me happy in the long run. So it's important.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, because it is like saying, look, I care about myself and this is what I want out of my life. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Self-care and loving
Yeah.
yourself and taking care of yourself and giving your body the proper nutrition that it needs, not only from, food wise, but, what we surround ourselves with, media, reading good books, watching, positive television, podcasts, whatever it may be. Good environment. I think it will ultimately serve you uh, for the best. It's self-care. So, man, I have so enjoyed this, and so I really want to make sure people they know. I want to make sure they know about your books, and we're going to have your website link listed in this podcast, and on your website you say they can find you to go watch you at your
I
comedy shows
list
or
my
your.
performances. They can contact me if they're interested in coaching. I do a little bit of coaching when my time permits, because that's part of my goal, to help people and kind of give them that one-on-one interaction. But yeah, all my books are up on unchainedlives.com. All the self-help books. My other books are on Amazon. You hit in Kirk Nurmi on Amazon, you'll see anything from pristine and self-help books like Defend Your Greatness, all the way down to the depths of Sex Club Killer.
And it's just expanding.
It is just expanding, and it's a fun little thing, and it's a scary thing to put out a piece of fiction, because it all came through me, right? But I thought, I can't let John Grisham have all the fun. I've got a lot of years of experience, and so this story came up, and really, this this next year I'll be working on something even a little crazier.
I love that though. You're challenging yourself to step out of your comfort zone. And, so many people, they choose to stay in this framework that they feel they have to because it's it's safety.
Yeah.
Oh, it's comforting. Oh, all right. But even with writing a book, you're stepping out and you're doing something different. So I think that's awesome. And I think we should all push ourselves and try something new. And so I like that you're an author as well. And I remember whenever I hadn't written my book, whenever I'd met you, and you had given me one of yours and encouraging me to to go at it. Although my book, it's not a big one. It started out where it was going to be much bigger, but then one of the editors cut out like 20 to 30,000 words because of it just didn't make sense. I was like, oh darn, well that sucks. So I'm like, well, there you go. It's going to be a smaller book, but in a way I'm glad that it is. But I think writing is fun, and I'd like to write more books in the future. It's just time consuming, but I think it's worth it. It's very therapeutic as well when you can just write out your thoughts on paper.
I think so. I mean, Defend Your Greatness was a real therapeutic book for me because it kind of encapsulates a lot of what I learned through my journey once I knew I had cancer to kind of getting through it and getting the new life. I talk about in that book how I think we're all born with an inherent greatness in us, and we get distracted by a lot of things that tarnish that greatness, like maybe the pressure to make money, the pressure to take on the family business or do the same thing dad did or whatever it is, right? And that we step away from that greatness. And I think we're going to live our happiest life and have no deathbed regrets in the end when we defend our greatness against those things and live as our most authentic self. So that was a real therapeutic journey for me. And it took me, it was my third draft. I wrote a couple other books, other titles, and it took over 2 years to get it just right until it was ready. But what I wanted to produce to the world. And my advice to you or any author is put the piece of art or the piece of work that you want to put out there. Maybe your editor's right, maybe he or she is wrong, but in the end, ultimately, you need to put out what you want to put out. That piece of art, that piece of work, that portion of your heart that you want to put on the paper, that's what you need to put out.
I love that. And that's words of wisdom. And you never know who it might help and who needs to hear those things. And only you can tell it. Only you can tell your story the way that you do. We're all very unique individuals. And I think that's the way God created us. And why not, So Kirk, man, thank you so much. I have seriously enjoyed this. And I know the next time I'm in Arizona, hopefully the next time we'll get to actually sit down and have some coffee and enjoy each other's fellowship.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, man.
I enjoy that very much.
Oh, I had a blast. And everyone that is listening or watching this, do find Kirk, get in contact with him, look at his stuff, get his books on Amazon. Respect this man. He has encountered a lot, but he's overcame so much, and he's really making a tremendous impact in the world. And I love this man. So Kirk, thank you so much. And I hope to see you all back here for the next episode of Scar Release. Take care. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Scar Release. Please be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. And remember, no matter what scars you carry, there is hope, and you can live a life of freedom.